Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today, at deck number 962, we speak for the trees. It's weird, I haven't even seen that movie. Anyway, Fanghorn the Tree Shepherd. We got a 7 mana 4/10. This is obviously Lord of the Rings. Tree folk you control have vigilance. And whenever one or more tree folk you control attack, add twice that much green mana. That's pretty sweet. You don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases in. Now, I went tribal tree folk because the first two lines want you to do tribal tree folk. Now, I know Omnath, Locus of Mana would fit in here wonderfully, as would a lot of other things that I chose not to use because I kind of went streamlined. I mean, I have 2 elves, but, it's not that big of a stretch, elves and trees. Anyway, let's get to it. We will start with our card draw, which is not a lot. Now, there are no artifacts in this deck because, as you remember from Lord of the Rings, Twin Treebeard, they come with their saws and axes, I am operating under the impression that tree folk do not like artifice. So, things being what it is. We have Explore, which I have as card draw because you're not always going to have the land, but you're always going to get to draw the card. We have, it's been a while, double meat, double cheese, Rites of Flourishing. Everybody draws 2, plays 2. That's hence the double meat, double cheese. A good tree folk card draw, Heartwood Storyteller, does not get enough praise, even not just in tree folk decks, but in heavy creature decks anyway. Like, this does a ton of work in Ruickthar. But, I mean, nobody really wants to kill it because it helps the table, And I know that there's a mixed opinion on helping the table, like with Rites of Flourishing and Heartwood Storyteller, Howling Mind, stuff like that. But anything to speed the game up, to progress the game along, hey, if it ends, we'll just shuffle up and play another game. And then one of my favorites is not actually card advantage, but it is card selection. I love Cream of the Crop. I was a big fan of it when it came out in Morningtide. Good friend of mine used to play it in his standard tree folk deck back then. But yeah, you get to filter. You put one of those cards on top of your library, the rest on the bottom. Every time you get a creature. And let's face it, X is that creature's power. We got trees, yo. So now let's look at our card draw. Our ramp. As I said, we don't have any artifacts, so there's no Soul Ring. But I do have the Elvish Mystic and the good old-fashioned Llanowar Elf. Gotta have Job. Rampant Growth, Cultivate, Migration Path, Search for Tomorrow. Yeah, that's a lot of ramp there, I know. Because our commander rewards us for producing green mana. It doesn't go anywhere. We can bank it up. Now, Recross the Pass is another one from Morningtide. By the way, if you're building Tree Folk, Morningtide's going to be your best friend. It's a rampant growth that you could possibly get back. Well, actually, it's better than rampant growth because the land doesn't come into play tapped. And with Tree Folk not being cheap, there's a good chance you're going to get it back. And you can pick who at the table, like if there's that dragon player, you're like, yep, don't want to do them. But if you've got that goblin player, you're like, okay, I'll do that. We have Path of the Animist. It's a explosive vegetation variant. I just didn't have an explosive edge. But we do sometimes I'm prone to doing plane chase, and if that happens, hey, extra added bonus. Of course, Fertile Ground. And then, obviously, I wanted to use as many Lord of the Rings cards as I could. Travel through Cardass. You get to the table votes, right, in between, pretty much that was the choice he gave Frodo. Let the ring bearer decide. You either get a bunch of lands or you regrowth a bunch of stuff back, or some mixture of both. So, pretty neat. I love these cards like this because we tend to play a lot of large games. Here, I am in the studio right now at the shop, and I'm looking at our commander table, which is Thursday. So, this is one of our 4 commander nights a week. Thursday tends to be the biggest commander night of the week, and I'm looking at our big commander table that sits 10 people, and we will play however many people sit down. And then, of course, we have our new Virtue of Strength. I like triple mana. Triple mana is my friend. So let's get to our trees that we are speaking for, right? We have, of course, you got to have the Timber Protector. Makes them all in, or all other tree folk in forest are indestructible. Now, the best case scenario is you copy this thing. I do not have a way to do that, so that they protect each other and everything's indestructible, and yay. The best Timber Protector does is saves you from 1 board wipe. Yay. Because he dies and then everybody else doesn't. But that's why we have a regrowth and a revive the Shire. But anyway, back to the tree folk. We have Enraged Huron. I know I'm not pronouncing that right. Getting tempted by the ring. I mean, that's kind of a side effect here. The Generous Int. Now, Everbark Shaman, you exile a tree folk in your yard, search your library for 2 forests, put them into play tapped. I mean, it makes use of your dead trees, right? Battle Wand Oak. Now, Bosk Banneret probably should have been in the... It's cost saving, so it probably should have been in the ramp section, but not everything in our deck is a tree folk, so... And a Cheaty-faced tree folk, known as Comedian Colossus. Yes, that's right. It is your favorite Minor Mutant Ninja Turtle Time Lord. We have Tree Folk Harbinger, Eudora the Grave Gardener, Ambassador Oak. Now, Leaf Crowned Elder is a thing. This is a thing. Here again, Morningtide. Beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. If it shares a creature type with this, either a tree folk or a shaman, you may reveal it. If you do, you get it for the free. So if you flip up a tree folk, it's free. Wow. Walker of the Grove. I'm surprised they haven't done a play on this and a zombie version of it. It was Walker of the Grave. But they probably have, and I just don't know it. Orchard Strider. Get some food tokens. It also has the basic land cycling, which is kind of with the other card that we saw. You could basic land cycle it and then exile it from the yard to get some. Yeah, you see where I'm going. Reach on the Clown Crowd of Oak is awesome. Sometimes you just need a big old nasty 5/7 Vigilance Trample like Oak Gnarl Warrior. Then we got Quick Beam. I'll eventually get to the Quick Beam deck as well, if I haven't already. I don't remember. Whenever this or another tree folk enters the battlefield under your control, 2 target creatures get +2/+2 in trample. 2. That's pretty good. Vertaloth the Ancient. Since we're storing up all this extra green mana that's not emptying, hey, we're going to kick this guy. Timberland Ancient. Another, I can't stress the importance of reach, because let's face it, folks, trees do not fly at all. Not even a little bit. So, I mean, it does have forest cycling, but that reach is key. Great Oak Guardian, another reacher. Nemata, Grove Guardian. Now, here is a good mana dump. I feel like there needs to be mana dumps because at some point in time, if you are mounting up enough green mana, an opponent is going to have something to say about that. Yeah. Orchard Warden, gain life equal to his toughness. That's a pretty good thing there. Seagull Ash. Put into graveyard from play. You may search your library for 3 forest cards, put them into play tapped. Boy, Seagull Ash when it dies, and then you could use the other one. Yeah, you see where I'm going. Lots of forests. And Woodfall Primus. Woodfall Primus is one of those cards that I have to look up to make sure it's still legal. And I believe it still is. It's just... But in this deck, there is no way to abuse it and flicker it, whatnot. So... I think there's a couple ways to put a +1/+1 counter on it to negate the -1/-1 counter, blah, blah, blah. You get it. So with all these, so let's pump up our team now. So we have a Blanchwood Armor, which is going to help you get in there for the commander win if you need to, because all the forests we're going to have, you slap it on your commander. 21 power is not unheard of in this deck. And if you've got your Rogue's Passage, then it just... works, right? Overrun, this is more of in the line of if you drew into the Sapperling route or the little creature route and you can overwhelm. Generally, Overrun's not winning you the game unless played late. It is, however, remove target player from the game a lot of times. Unnatural Growth. Let's just going to double them all, right? At the beginning, I love that it's each combat, so you get this while blocking as well. So your reach creatures, they're big enough to block and live through dragons, angels, what have you. Asceticism is just a great card. Your creatures have hexproof, and you can regenerate them. It just seemed like a perfect fit for the deck. Obviously, it was in a Lord of the Rings reprint. And then, of course, we have our good old-fashioned heroic intervention for the no, you didn't. But then we have some, what I like to call, Tree Folk adjacent cards, right? The long list of ints, which has 6 chapters that are all the same. Hilarious, and it's an int card. That's the reason why it's in there. Assemble the Entmoot. Creatures you control have reach. Now, this was one of the early cards. I was like, yes. But you can sack this to create 3 Tree Folk, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Put a reach counter on each of them. So, it's got some utility if somebody, it's a very specific utility, though. I don't know that you can react to somebody's disenchant. If you haven't gained any life, it doesn't do you any good. But anyway, the first line, it was enough for me. We have Silvering Offering. I love Make Friend cards because there's a great chance here to call a truce, call an alliance, whatever you want to call it. Do a little politicking around the table. If you see somebody that has no blockers, hey. We have the last March of the Ents. Can be countered. Seems like that line right there carries a mana cost tax. Generally, 8 mana is a lot, but is it really a lot in this deck? I don't think so. Draw cards equal the greatest toughness you control. So this is a card draw spell, but for some reason I didn't put it in the card draw slot. Oh, and then you get to put any number of creatures from your hand on the battlefield. That's sweet. Then this is probably one of the most underrated cards, Reach of Branches. You get a 2/5 Tree Folk token, right? But when a forest enters the battlefield, you put this back in your hand. So you can continually make 2/5 tokens. Now, this is amazing in any mono green deck. I don't understand why I don't have this in Azusa, to be honest with you. Now, if those tokens had reach, I think this would be a rare. Really do. Now, let's look for removal, of which there is plenty. First, the reason why there are no artifacts, of course, we are running the Creeping Corrosion. running a deck without artifacts is almost unheard of these days. Ever since they made like Arcane Signet so common, y'all remember a few years ago that thing used to be $5 because, yeah, but there's so many artifacts now. People have just accepted, well, a deck's got to have a Soul Ring. And I know I'm the last person you probably want to hear this from, but every deck does not need a Soul Ring. Every deck does not even want a Soul Ring. Yeah, let that sink in. We have Nature's Claim, because sometimes you got to get that artifact or enchantment off the board early. And sometimes turn 1, that's when it needs to happen. We have the Ents Fury. This is creature removal. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature. If it's powered 4 or greater, that creature gets another +1 and then fights. So you can remove something. Now, I love Deglamour. Y'all know why I love Deglamour. Because it gets rid of those indestructible things. Thank you, your Darksteel Forge is shuffled away. I'm not destroying it, I'm just shuffling it away. Return to Nature, of course, good utility. Lignify fits because it just, hey, you're one of us. One of us. Have a little spring cleaning, destroy target enchantment, then you clash. If you win, destroy all enchantments your opponents control. That is a baller move when it goes off. Crows and Grip. And another one that's just a flavor win is Root Grapple. We're probably, by the time we have 5 mana to cast this, we're probably having a Treefall, right? So we're going to get to draw the card. And non-creature permanent, most of the times that's what you lose to, right? And then, of course, we have our good old-fashioned Beast Within. Now, this one is not really removal, but Choke. Yes, that's right. I'm running Choke because we need every advantage we can get. I mean, we're playing Treefolk, okay? Islands don't untap, and blue is, if you can get this on the table, besides bouncing, that's about it. Not a lot of decks run bouncing in blue, so blue's going to give us the most problem with flyers and counter magic and blah, whatever you, but I think cards like Choke, furthermore Boil, if the blue player lets them resolve, then I don't know, that's not on us. And then our last card is our only other non-basic land that we have not covered yet, Myriad Landscape. I love Myriad Landscape because it trades 1 land drop for 2. So, and then of course we have our handy-dandy basic lands. I sometimes get comments about you only got 4 lands in the deck. It's terrible, but that's because I don't cover basic lands because they're basic lands, you know. Anyway, that is what I have got for today. I do appreciate y'all watching. Y'all let me know what you think. Tell me down below, what did I forget? But right now, we're going to shuffle and cut.